Welcome, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. This is our community development public hearing. It is March 30th, 2023. The time is 6:07 p.m. And I'm calling this meeting to order. In attendance are Commissioners Brooks, Matari, and Duncan. So I've got a couple of rules of play that I hope everybody will understand and abide by. All public comment and testimony will be civil and respectful. Address the Board of County Commissioners and not the audience. Address issues and not persons. Refrain from applause as it interferes with due process. Do raise your hands if you are in agreement with the speaker. When asked by a commissioner to stop, please do so promptly or face being asked to leave the meeting. If repeated requests by a commissioner are disregarded, the meeting will be recessed or adjourned depending on the issue at hand. So I appreciate everybody's cooperation. Are there any changes to the agenda? I would suggest one, and that would be to continue deliberations to April 13th at our regularly scheduled 10 a.m. meeting. Are there objections to that? Nope.
No.
Okay. And conflicts of interest? Are there
None.
any? None? Okay. And now we can start with our public hearing, and this is Major Subdivision 22-0004, Lakestone Estates. And then the applicant will get 30 minutes. The group presentations will get 15 minutes each. Individuals get 3 minutes, and then the applicant gets a 15-minute rebuttal. We are now going to start with our staff presentation. Vlad?
Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, Vlad Finkel with Kootenai County Community Development.
Can you speak up, please?
Good evening. For the record, Vlad Finkel with Kootenai County Community Development. Can everyone hear me?
No.
You really need to speak up.
Once again, for the record, Vlad Finkel with Kootenai County Community Development. This is a request for a 24-lot major subdivision. As you may recall, the Board of County Commissioners had deliberations on February 3rd of this year, and at the request of one of the community members, the board granted a public hearing on this matter to allow for public testimony to address a number of concerns that were raised through the review process. The subject property consists of 8.3 acres in size. It's located in Bayview area, just south of Perimeter Road. The current zoning classification is restricted residential, and the comp plan designation is shoreline. The subject property is fairly level, and it's heavily vegetated at this point. There is an existing creek, that Bayview Creek, that traverses along the eastern property boundary. I'm sorry, my laser is not. Let's see if it's working. No, it's unfortunate it's not working with this laptop, but it's running across, if everyone can see my mouse, but it's running along the eastern property line of the subject property. Just to advise the board, in 2006, the applicant submitted an application for a 29-lot major subdivision. It was approved in March of 2007. Based on review of the historical records, we concluded that a number of the extensions were granted for this preliminary approval. However, due to the downturn of the economy in 2008, the applicant never moved forward with the final plat, and subsequently the project became null and void. As I mentioned, Bayview Creek runs along the eastern property line of the subject property. These are some of the photos of the creek. That this is near the Perimeter Road right-of-way. During the public hearing that was conducted in 2007, a number of community members raised concerns with regard to the potential for Bayview Creek flooding. And at the time, the Board of County Commissioners requested that a study be conducted in order to determine whether or not the creek or the floodplain associated with the creek could have a great impact on the subject property. And at the time, it was determined that because the classification of Baby Creek was a Class 2 stream, that the 30-foot buffer would sufficiently address the requirements for a stream protection buffer as well as the potential for flooding. It was concluded by the engineer of record at that time that the flood zone would not exceed beyond the geographical area of the 30-foot stream protection buffer. The original request that was submitted by the applicant last summer contemplated having a total of 25 residential lots with a 30-foot buffer as originally contemplated in 2006 for the protection of Class 2 Baby Creek. During the agency comment period, we received a number of public comments from the adjoining property owners who raised concerns with respect to the classification of Baby Creek, and they submitted evidence into the record that showed evidence of perhaps having fisheries within the, or having a fish habitat within the creek itself, and that further review was necessary to address and revise the classification of Baby Creek. Going back to this, I wanted to also reference that the access to the subject property will be off of Perimeter Road, and then it will extend through Fur Road right-of-way that will be improved on the sub end of the property onto Schaefer Road, which is the main access road to the subdivision of the subdivision to the south of this request. Bayview Water and Sewer would provide domestic water and sewage disposal. Community Development did receive a conditional will serve letter with the district's position that it has the willingness and it has the potential capacity to serve this subdivision so long as they were able to improve their own district infrastructure improvements. Going back to the classification of Bayview Creek, during the agency comment period, we forwarded all the comments that were submitted by the public to our officials with Department of Fish and Game and Idaho Department of Lands. We did receive a response from Idaho Department of Fish and Game that, based on review of the information that was submitted by the public as well as further review on their end, Idaho Department of Fish and Game determined that the current classification or the then classification of a Class 2 stream needed to be revised to a Class 1 stream, and that the project would require a 75-foot buffer from the ordinary high water mark of the Bayview Creek. So we immediately advised the applicant at that time, and we explained to them that they needed to revise their plat to have a 75-foot buffer. Due to the, based on the size of the proposed lots, a number of those lots would be deemed unbuildable because the 75-foot buffer would now encompass a large portion of those lots, and it would basically deem them non-buildable because of the setback requirements and the class 1 buffer. So the applicant went back to the drawing board and they revised the plat to look slightly different, but still maintaining the same access points off of Perimeter Road as well as access through Fur Street onto Schaefer. And by revising the plat, they had to eliminate one of the lots to increase the size of those lots along Bayview Creek to make feasible room for future lots, including the 75-foot buffer and the front and side yard setbacks in the restricted residential zone. None of the other provisions in terms of infrastructure improvements and water and sewer provisions had changed. Going back to the comments from other agencies, One of the one of the focal points of public's concern was the traffic associated with the subdivision. Typically, it's rare that the applicant or staff have a final say in the design and configuration of access points and interior road when it comes to subdivision design. Most of the review and the final say comes from the highway district with jurisdiction. In this case, it's Lakes Highway District. I know and I'm sure the board has seen the public comments that are part of the record. There were a number of concerns that were raised with respect to access to through the First Street and Schaefer onto this subdivision to the south of the subject plat. And some of the folks had requested that we require the applicant to revise their plat or go back to the highway district and revise it so that there would be 2 access points off of Perimeter Road and no access through the south. Unfortunately, we as a department, as I stated before, do not make that determination. We merely request the highway district to analyze, assess the impacts associated with the project, and then provide us with a recommendation, with their recommendations and requirements that in turn become conditions of approval. And so it's important for staff to know that if a project is feasible based on what the highway district is requesting, that we forward that to the hearing examiner as well as the board to be consistent with ultimately with the design that has been negotiated by the developer as well as the highway district with jurisdiction. Some of the other agencies had typical comments such as the fire district requiring fire suppression. Idaho Department of Water Resources had no concerns with Bayview Water or Sewer District water right. With the water right associated with the Bayview Water and Sewer District. Idaho Department of Environmental Quality had state requirements. Kootenai County Sheriff basically provide law enforcement assessment and their times of providing service in case of an emergency. These are some photos of the property in question. Like I said, it's heavily vegetated and it's relatively flat at this point. There is a fence line along the western property line, as you can see on the lower left photo, and this is adjoining Farragut State Park. During the hearing examiner's hearing, we advised the hearing examiner that staff analysis was that the applicant revised the plat to have a 75-foot wide stream protection buffer along Bayview Creek Class 1 stream, consistent with the findings of the Idaho Department of Fish and Game. The stream protection buffer would adequately address the flood study findings as well, because the original findings of the flood study was that only up to 30 feet of the subject property adjacent to the stream would likely be flooded in case that were to happen. And being that the stream protection buffer would now be more than twice the size, this was a non-issue. We believe, based on the review of the aerial maps and the existing lot sizes in the area, that the proposal is compatible with the surrounding residential development in Bayview. We believe that this proposal is less intense and therefore would have less impacts than the 2007 approval, because it would have 5 fewer lots. The original request, if you recall, had a total of 29 lots that were approved in March of 2007. The project complies with the comprehensive plan shoreline designation goals and policies. The applicant will be required to comply with the public agency requirements listed as conditions of approval in the staff report as well as the HE recommendation. The applicant will be required to submit documentation from Bayview Water and Sewer District confirming district's upgrades not associated with the project are complete prior to connection. And as I mentioned early on, is the will serve letter is conditional based on the improvements that are necessary for the district itself, in addition to the improvements that will be associated with the subdivision that will connect ultimately to its services. We believe that by having the applicant comply with all of the agency requirements and by constructing all the infrastructure, that this will be a consistent and compatible project with the current development in the area. During the hearing examiner's public comment period, we received a total of 23 comments. 20 were in opposition, 3 were with concerns dating back to last summer with respect to the classification of Bayview Creek. That issue has been settled. A number of concerns during the first public hearing were Bayview Creek classification, additional traffic and density, potential flooding along the creek, and lack of sufficient water pressure to provide service. This is the plat once again. The hearing examiner heard this request on January 19th of this year and subsequently recommended approval. On February 3rd of this year, as I stated previously, the board held deliberations, and after a short presentation by staff, they concluded that they would grant the public hearing to further assess the concerns raised by the public. During the second public comment period, we received 16 comments, 2 with concerns and no position, and 14 comments in opposition. The same concerns were raised with the potential for flooding along Bayview Creek, additional traffic, and primarily concerns with the access points going through the subdivision to the south, lot sizes and overall density, and lack of sufficient water pressure to provide service. These are some of the required findings for a major subdivision. And I do stand for any questions that you have for me at this time.
Questions for Vlad? No? All right. Then I will go ahead and call up the applicant representative, and that's Gordon Dobler. Oh. Did I not get your paper? Oh, there it is. Okay. That's okay. All right. Connie Kruger, go ahead. So Connie, is Gordon going to speak?
He is, yes.
Okay. All right.
I'll do the primary presentation.
Thank you. Okay.
Turned on? Can you shut down Zoom from the computer? I mean, shut down console? No. I guess we have. see the cursor now.
For some reason the mouse isn't working.
It was working, but now.
Computer pad is working, but the mouse itself.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Some days technology is our best friend, other days it is time after time frustration.
Oh my gosh. There we go. Yeah, maybe I'll just motion when it's time to change it, so. Okay,
Okay, thank
I
you.
think we're ready. Do you need my name and
Sure.
address? Okay.
Well, yes, sure.
Okay. My name is Connie Kruger, and I'm here representing Gary Schmidt, who is the property owner.
We can't hear, sorry.
You need to speak up for some reason.
Yeah.
And Jonathan, are we sure that the back volume is up? Okay,
Okay.
everything's all the way up now, so.
Okay, I'll try to be loud.
Okay.
Anyone who knows me knows that's not easy for me, so if I start to slide down, just please let me know.
Okay,
So my name is Connie Kruger. I am here representing the owner of the property, who's Gary Schmidt. And this is a project that we have been working on since probably late 2019, 2020. There's a lot of work that has gone on into this, working with baby water and sewer in particular. And so we'll be talking about some of that tonight. I have with me Gordon Dobler with Dobler Engineering, and he is the project engineer. He'll be talking a little bit about utilities and transportation and some of that discussion that we've been having with baby water and sewer, and also with Lakes Highway District. So I think everyone here is very familiar with the location of the property, so I don't think that we need to cover that. But a couple of the key points with this plat. This is an area with restricted residential zoning, and the minimum lot size is 8,250 square feet. And in this zone district, single-family residential is a use of right. We're also located within an urbanized area where there are other urban properties and services that exist. We have collectors and local roads that are capable of carrying the anticipated traffic volumes, and we also have low peak hour traffic. And again, we'll dive down into these further. We're located within Timberlake Fire District, Lakes Highway District, and Lakeland School District. So we're in an area with services. We have emergency response provided by Kootenai County Sheriff, Timberlake Fire District, and Kootenai County Emergency Medical. As you're aware, the agencies have all approved the plat with conditions. And as I mentioned, we've been working for several years on this. We are providing for additional riparian area protection, and we will be serviced by utilities and roads that are extended to the cost of the owner. We'll also be paying taxes and fees to mitigate specific service and infrastructure impacts. As has been mentioned, this was approved in 2007 for a 29-lot subdivision with a 30-foot stream protection buffer, and the hearing examiner did make a recommendation to approve our current proposal on after the January 27th hearing. We also will have CC&Rs. Those are required with the conditions of approval. Those are for the Idaho Fish and Game requirements for the maintenance of any shared infrastructure. And we also have a requirement to place some specific stream protection language on the face of the plat. But we're also happy to incorporate that into our CC&Rs. Okay, so here's the plat. Again, Vlad has gone over quite a bit of this with you, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but this is a 24-lot subdivision. Gordon has conferred formally and informally with Lakes Highway District in developing the project. And in those discussions, there was a lot of discussion about where access would be taken from, connectivity. And with that, the approval that we've been provided with by Lakes has required the access on the north onto East Perimeter and also to connect down to the south on North Fir Avenue. And we also, if you look at the plat, we have little common driveway approaches on the lots, and that's just to kind of minimize the access points out onto that local access road. Mentioned our work with Bayview Water and Sewer, and then we've also incorporated the findings of the Idaho Department of Lands and Idaho Fish and Game related to Bayview Creek. So we did redesign to incorporate that 75-foot stream protection buffer. We did remove a lot, but one other thing to note is that with this, we have also agreed to language for enhanced riparian area protection. So what we've agreed to with this is to have language that is similar to the floodplain ordinance. We're not within a Mount FEMA floodplain, but we've agreed to abide by standards that would not allow us to do any type of development within that buffer, no stream crossings, things like that, and that it would be preserved as open space and left in a natural condition. So that's a higher level of protection than what would be found in the sensitive area ordinance. I certainly will try. Thanks. Okay, can you?
Microphone?
I do.
Is it
Yeah.
on you? Are you able to hold it or?
It's in their correct location.
Yeah.
It is. So for the county's comprehensive plan, the future land use designation is shoreline, and our sub-area designation is North Kootenai. And we're in the restricted residential zone, and so the purpose of this zoning district is for land which has been found to be suitable for development or for residential use, which is or expected to become 1 or 2 family unit living areas, and uses are generally limited to residential uses. So this isn't a rural zone, this isn't an agricultural zone. It is basically the county's one urban residential zoning district. The bulk standards, the minimum lot size is 8,250 square feet. Our project has an average lot size of 13,000 square feet, and we range anywhere from 10,000 to 21,000 square feet. I did take a look at the adjacent neighborhoods around us, and in particular, the neighborhood to the south, there are a lot of combined lots where the owners have 2 lots that are within their ownership, and they built structures that kind of like span those lot lines. And so most of those combined lots are coming in at right about 10,000 square feet. Some are as small as a single lot with a single home at 5,000, and I think one of the larger ones was about 15,000 square feet. I also looked to the northeast, and you see a pretty similar pattern. The lots are a little more odd shaped, a little less of this frequency of a block pattern, but pretty much the same patterns. Again, single-family dwellings are a use of right in this zone district, and there you see the setbacks that are required. This map shows the surrounding zoning, and you can see our property there with the blue star. You can see the restricted residential zoning to the north, to the east, down toward the lake, and also to the south. We also have commercial zoning to the north, east, and south, and I kind of highlight that because there are areas of the county where there is residential zoning, but there's not a mix of commercial zoning and other things that provide for localized support systems. We do have rural zoning to the west, and that rural zoning would have a minimum lot size of 5 acres. This is an aerial photo showing the surrounding land use, and so we can see that to the north, to the east, and to the south, that this is a fairly regular pattern of development consistent with what we're requesting. And then the property directly to our west is owned by Idaho Fish and Game, and that's a 320-acre property, and that has the rural zoning that we've talked about. This is a topographic map of the property, and if you take a look up there, the property actually at the upper northwest corner is the high point, and it slopes down to the southeast, and over the span of that property, that is less than a 3% slope, so it's relatively flat. The soils are a Bonner gravelly silt loam, and these are not hydric soils. They're well drained, and they have flooding and water storage characteristics. This slide addresses the Kootenai County Code and the stream protection buffers, and talks a little bit about this history of modifying this from a Class 2 to a Class 1 stream. So if you look at the upper right-hand map, we see that DEQ mapped Bayview Creek as a perennial stream, which would be more of a Class 2. And you can see with the blue line where this drains from the northwest to the southeast. There is a 24-inch culvert at the south end, and then Bayview Creek flows through town and it empties via a culvert into the lake. So the class, we had a lot of public comment on this early on, and consultation with the Department of Lands, Fish and Game, and ultimately they arrived at the determination that this was a Class 1. So again, we remapped, and I also would like to point out there have been some comments and concerns about stormwater being within this area. We do have that 75-foot no-touch buffer, but also conditions 7.08 and 7.9 of the hearing examiner recommendation address site disturbance permitting, and that's both during construction, and that would require stormwater and erosion control measures, and then also at the time of building permit. There's an option for the county planning staff to require that with individual building permits, that there be a site disturbance permit. This area is not within a FEMA mapped floodplain. We discussed earlier the stormwater and flooding study that was completed with a prior plat. We did have our current engineer, Gordon, review that, and he actually consulted with a prior engineer who had completed the study back in 2007. Both of them had the same findings related to it, that the flooding, any kind of overbank activity would be contained within the 30-foot buffer that was proposed at the time. Again, now we have a 75-foot buffer. And this just shows you some of the different, areas within both the property and within town where the stream has been, maybe it's free flowing in areas, and other areas it's been realigned to follow road alignments. There are culverts, bridges, water wheels, and the like that are through the downstream section from our property. As to transportation, East Perimeter Road is a minor collector with access to regional transportation systems and services. So this provides access out to Highway 95, access to everything that Highway 95 provides access to. So Lakes Highways District has requested the dedication of right-of-way and easements, and Gordon will go into that a little bit further. That the internal road system has northern access to Perimeter Road and southern access to First Street. The single shared approaches. They are also requiring limited access for double frontage roads or lots. So those lots that you see that are in the middle will only be allowed to have approaches off of the west side. There will also be limited street parking in winter months and a road development agreement for East Perimeter Road. Lakes is also requiring a turn warrant analysis to be completed prior to the final plat to determine if any additional improvements would be needed to East Perimeter. And in their letter, they have stated that the Fir Avenue extension is expected to change existing traffic patterns for betterment of the public and emergency services. So that's a quote from the Lakes Highway District approval letter. This road system internally will be built to the Lakes Highway District rural local access standard, and you can see the typical section for that in the upper right. That is basically about two 14-foot wide lanes going either direction, and then you have the shoulder of the road and then the swales. There is not a standard in this area for sidewalks with Lakes Highway District. Dobler Engineering did prepare a trip generation letter, and with that have determined that 85% of weekday and peak hour traffic will use East Perimeter, and the remaining 15% will use North Fur Avenue. And that would equate to about 21 peak hour trips on East Perimeter Road and 4 peak hour trips on North Fur Avenue. And Mr. Dobler will discuss that further. As to utilities, we do have a will-serve letter. As I mentioned, we spent probably a year and a half working with Bayview Water and Sewer on that. They have determined that they will have adequate capacity to provide sanitary sewer service and provide potable water service. So with water, we'll be connecting to a 4-inch, that's a 4-inch, not a 4-foot main, in East Schaefer Street, and a 6-inch main in East Perimeter Road. And we'll also be installing fire hydrants, which are required by Timberlake Fire District. For sewer, we'll have a stage effluent system, and that consists of future individual septic tanks with the effluent conveyed via future individual service lines to a future primary effluent that will be built on the road. And then this will connect to a 4-inch sewer stub in North First Street. So with the development, the owner will provide any easements and will extend the utility services, and will also pay any connection and capitalization fees. Agency comments, Vlad has reviewed, but we have a variety of agency comments that have been incorporated into the final recommendation of the hearing examiner. And we do accept those conditions of approval of the hearing examiner and all of the agency requirements. So with that, I just have a quick little recap slide here of the key items, and I will turn the presentation over to Gordon, and then I am available for any questions after that.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and Commissioners. Gordon Dobler, Dobler Engineering. I'm here to address, again, the engineering concerns in the 15 minutes left. Let me touch on the utilities to start with. There was a question and concern also in the hearing examiner, the hearing we had there about the capacity. So Bayview Water and Sewer has issued a will serve. The issue with the water for them was not quantity, it was pressure. So they currently have a booster station to serve not just this subdivision, but the area around it, and it's under construction, and it will be complete by October, and that was part of the condition that came from staff, that would have to be basically confirmed with the subdivision. So that's the latest. It is under construction. With the completion of that booster station, it will serve adequate pressure, actually in excess of the 40 PSI required. Regarding the creek, as Connie said, I obtained and reviewed the original flood study that was based on a 100-year flood for the project. I conferred with the original engineer and basically concurred that the 100-year flood in Bayview Creek through this subdivision would be contained in the 30-foot buffer, which is now a 75-foot buffer. There was some concern earlier that that study hadn't taken into account impoundments, culverts, and the road, when in fact it did. My discussion with the engineer confirmed that. Okay, let's talk about traffic, which I think is one of the major concerns, rightfully so. Hopefully you'll remember the layout of the subdivision. When we first approached the highway district, we were not, if you can go to the aerial view, we were not wild about the Fur connection. That was not something, there you go, that we wanted to do. Anyway, it wasn't part of this. The access onto perimeter was our, sole access onto perimeter was our original intent, and that's what we asked the board for. The right-of-way for Fur has been existing. It was dedicated, and it is right-of-way, not an easement. It was dedicated with the original platting to the south and has existed there for years. That would indicate an intent to extend Fur through with the original platting. Let me just, because we're going to be talking about some traffic generation and traffic engineering. Let me briefly introduce myself in that respect. So I've had a 40-year career. I served as the city engineer for Coeur d'Alene for 23 years. During that time and previous experience, I have done countless traffic studies. I've done origin and destination studies. I've done speed studies. I've done every kind of traffic study you can imagine that goes with running a city, intersection analysis, and all that. So I would say I'm very familiar with traffic engineering, certainly qualified. Thank you for that. I'm not tooting my own horn. Well, maybe a little. Anyway, so this item went to the subdivision went to the highway district in October, on October 3rd. In that hearing, we discussed the traffic patterns. If you haven't read their letter, I'll refer to it here quickly in a minute, but the traffic was considered. Prior to that, I submitted a trip generation letter in May. You might hear testimony that says that was done inappropriately. I assure you it was not. The generation rates in that are for this project. The project is defined as the subdivision. Those trip generation rates come from a national manual that is from the Institute of Transportation Engineers, and they are defined at 9.44 trips per single-family residence. There's no variation from that. So that's what the trip generation letter was based on. The assignment of trips in and out of the subdivision is based simply on, an experience and studies of attractors, destination, and attraction for single-family residents, where they go, why they go there. So the highway district heard this issue, weighed the evidence, and made their findings. Their findings are included in a letter I'll refer to in a minute. You might hear that they inappropriately did not require a traffic impact study. Let me read from the highway district standards themselves, what a traffic impact study would encompass and what its purpose is. This is from the highway district standards. Traffic impact study, and I will refer to that as a TIS to save a little bit of time, is intended to forecast and, as needed, provide improvements to mitigate the transportation and traffic impacts of a proposed land use development or redevelopment project. A TIS will be required at the discretion of the highway district. However, it may typically require a TIS for when one or more of the following conditions are met. The project is projected to generate more than 50 trips in the AM or PM peak hours. Again, the project is defined as a subdivision. It generated 25 trips in the peak hours. That was evaluated. They anticipate project driveway trips will significantly impact traffic operations on all adjacent parcels. That was evaluated during the hearing at the board and was considered in their decision. 3, the project is proposed along a route that historically experiences or is projected to experience traffic safety issues. The route doesn't exist, so there was no anticipation of that, and again, that was considered by the board in their decision. Finally, the project is proposed within the vicinity of a school, a community park, or some other areas with high levels of pedestrian and neighborhood activity. We'll hear that these residential subdivisions are areas of high pedestrians activity. I would submit that the residential neighborhoods that surround this, and including the one we're building, are typical of any residential subdivision regarding pedestrian activity. So that was considered, and the board clearly did not agree that this was met. Regarding the extension of fur, you might hear that it is not a code requirement, when in fact it is a code requirement. Highway District has an ordinance, and it was attached actually to the letter they submitted, and I quote from the ordinance: "Access shall be provided to the road with the lowest functional classification serving the proposed subdivision unless otherwise approved by the Director of Highways. That ordinance is 2019, was adopted in 2019 and has been implemented ever since. The extension of FER was an ordinance requirement, and that's important here in these last few minutes as I try to land this plane. So there was no TIS required. First of all, the TIS is at the discretion of the highway district. They considered all the 4 requirements that they would normally place on required, and in the end did not require a TIS. However, they did require a turn lane warrant on perimeter to address the potential for left turn conflicts in and out. And we have to complete that, and we will complete that. In that requirement, they do address, well, let me just say, these analysis, and they're talking about the turn warrant analysis, will need to include consideration of traffic from Schaefer and other roadways beyond the proposed subdivision that will inherently use the Fur Avenue connection to Perimeter Road. So they recognize that some traffic from the subdivisions to the south will probably use Perimeter Road, and their charge was to estimate that traffic and include it in the turn warrant analysis, more than just from the subdivision. All right, I think we're kind of ready to land this plane. So I want to point out that because FER was a requirement, an ordinance requirement, that right-of-way was dedicated years ago and had been anticipated to be extended, the TIS, let me read from their traffic impact study guidelines. If a TIS required, will be developed and submitted prior to project approval. Any improvements will be completed prior to the issuance of building permit. Typically, the applicant can expect one or more of the following, and these would be requirements for the TIS, the purpose for it. Frontage improvements. Frontage improvements provide the highway district the opportunity to progress road, drainage, and pedestrian. Frontage improvements would extend along basically frontage roads. That's one purpose for the TIS. Direct mitigation of impacts from the subdivision itself. Highway district may require a project to directly improve a street or intersections that experience a proportionate increase of traffic as a result of the project development. Typically, they would include, but are not limited to, channelization, turn lane construction, signal invitation, road widening, sidewalks, bike lanes, parking lanes, drainage, etc. And then partial mitigation. Highway district may allow an applicant to participate proportionately with other applicants, in essence, in other required improvements. Here's the point. Thank you for your patience. The point is that the TIS, had it even been required by the highway district, would not have included the disconnection of Fur Avenue, period. That was by ordinance. That would not be a purpose of a TIS to address the connection or disconnection of Fur, gated or otherwise. That's another issue. It would not be addressed by a TIS had they required one. So, now let me just go through my notes real quick. Okay, so finally, I guess to address the concerns about Fur, and you might hear it characterized as the Fur bypass, cleverly phrased. So when we look at the potential for Fur to channel through traffic, let's look at a few things. First of all, 54 is Main Street, it is Perimeter Road. It's all the same road, and it's built to highway standards as it traverses through Bayview. Fur doesn't even connect to 54. There is no direct connection. It is 2 blocks off at its closest. You would have to go, traffic would have to choose to go 2 blocks out of direction through the kind of streets that are there. And I would like to quote a presentation which you might hear. Throughout Bayview, neighborhoods are by any measure substandard, without sidewalks, shoulders, traffic lights, signs, or parking. Often so narrow, when cars meet, one must stop and give the right-of-way. Trees, Bayview Creek, pedestrians, and parked cars often leave only one lane open, so the default speed is under 15 miles an hour, even without signs. Dogs and children play in the streets, and for the most part, we get along. My point is, that's an accurate description of the kind of streets that you would have to drive to detour off of 54 up to Perimeter. As a traffic engineer, there's really no traffic engineer in the county or in the Northwest that would ever conclude that FER's ever going to serve as a bypass. So with the 1 minute left, let me sum up. 1 minute, well, 1 second. The requirement of the TIS is under the purview of the Highway District. One was not required. Impacts of the project were considered per the Highway District standards, and they were set forth in the conditions in a letter dated October 4th to the county. Had a TIS been required, it would not have resulted in elimination of the connection of FER, which was required by ordinance. In fact, in Highway District's letter, they state themselves that they consider the connection of FER a benefit to the community. If FER is used at all, it would be used by the subdivisions within a 2 to 4 block radius south of this. Thank you.
Any questions for Gordon or for Connie?
No.
Okay, thank you. We have 2 people who are speaking in favor of the project, so I will go ahead and call on them first. Douglas Landwehr.
Good evening, I'm Doug Landwehr from 34300 Cool Winds Court in Bayview since 1975. I've watched the growth of our neighborhoods and community over the years, and this area in question has been designated residential, rural residential. When our sewer project was announced, I was asked to visit with Mr. Andy Pierce, who owned it at the time, and he said, what do we do here? How much should I, because I'd done a couple of subdivisions in Bayview in conjunction with the sewer district. And so I suggested, I kind of drew up a drawing sort of similar to this, and then at the time I went and talked to the highway district. I don't know if it was Mark Soderling or Joe Weiss, but probably Mark, and they said, yes, you would have to go, through FER connection, and I think I suggested to Andy to get like 29 sewer hookups, and maybe that's what they did, because the subdivision that was brought forward before the 28 downturn asked for 29 homes. So that's probably where we were at, similar to there. I didn't know, so then when this project came up, I'm concerned about the traffic and Bayview, but we're in a growth area. That's a fact. And so a month or so ago, I went in and talked to Eric, the engineer for Lakes Highway District now, and he mentioned this access management ordinance, and he said, actually, I don't understand all the terms, but to be granted, they went above and beyond what they had to grant the access on the perimeter, which totally makes sense. But he said, no way would they need that access off of FER. I was sad to see, I mean, I understand the 75-foot buffer, but I was sad to see it now. This is the first I've seen it. Sad to see the direct line. But, my feelings are, with knowing Bayview and been there for a long time, and a lot of friends and people there, is that I don't see these development people turning around and going through Bayview to hit a main thoroughfare. I think they will take the easy way out, the closest way out, go to Perimeter, go right downtown, or go left out to along the park fence and to the highway. I do see this being a benefit. I know they won't agree with me, but you will have more traffic coming from the existing homes going out that way and walking to visit neighbors, new neighbors, and go walk to the post office. And there are a lot of walkers in Bayview.
Okay, final thoughts, sir.
So my final thoughts are, well, there's no supply of homes in Bayview. They're absolutely, it's an area people like once we all get here. We love it. We love our town. And there's basically virtually no homes downtown in the 300,000 to 700,000 range. I have not talked to the developer and I don't know what he's
Okay,
planning. but
I'm gonna
just
have to cut you off there, sorry.
What,
All right.
yeah. All right, well, thanks
Thank
for your
you,
time.
thank you. Charles Schmidt, would you like to speak?
Hey, guys. Charles Schmidt, 903 North Armstrong Drive. I am the son of the wonderful Gary Schmidt, part of this development. He couldn't make it today. He's been going through some cancer treatment, but he should be okay, just a little sick. I will open it up with myself and then end it with a little letter my father wrote. I grew up here in Idaho. I joke and call myself an Idahoist. I love Idaho. I'm an Idaho evangelist. I love it here. The oldest of 5, and I'm the only one that lives here still. And I like to joke with my siblings that I picked the best place to live. Bayview's been a special place to me. I've always loved it every time I drive through. It's just such a beautiful place and a little treasure that is in our surrounding area. And so I do respect the concerns. However, at the end of the day, it's residential. I'm not trying to put in a cell phone tower, a multi-industrial complex. I'm not trying to rezone anything, just a neighborhood. In fact, rather small considering most of the ones that are going in. In fact, I would actually want to live there myself. It's been a spot I would like to live and call Bayview a home of my own. With that, I'll read my father's little letter here and I'll end it. This is from Gary Schmidt. Firstly, I would like to thank the Board of County Commissioners for taking the time to personally be part of this subdivision approval process. I apologize for not attending in person. However, personal health issues are making day-to-day life a little bit of a challenge. What is the greater good of the greatest amount of Kootenai County citizens over the greater period of time? This is a foundational cornerstone of my actions, of everything I do that affects the public. For the public emergency services of the fire department, ambulances, and law enforcement, connectivity and continuity of road system is an imperative must-do. Protecting the stream that has otherwise been exploited and manhandled outside of this project is another must-do. We have met and exceeded all requirements of government entities in all regards. I apologize for not being here in person. However, I hope these two, Connie and Gordon, can answer and address any questions that you may have or additional information that you may need. Thank you.
All right, we have 2 presentations, and what I will do, people had to give up their time for the presentation, so I will call your name, and please remain standing until I've called everybody's name. So, Gary Spahn, if you are here, please stand up. Okay. Margaret Nelson.
There.
All right. Oh, boy. I will go to somebody else. Howard Bishop. Okay. Edith Bishop. Robert Prince. Chad. No Chad? No. I can't read the last name. CAD something? Cadam. Okay. Okay, so with no Chad, I think there's additional people. Faye? Okay. And Ted? All right. Marie? Okay. So then we need one more. And Greg Hickman? Is Greg Hickman on Zoom? Can you tell me that, David? Okay.
Is it Hickman?
That's what it looks like, yeah. Greg or Sherry?
Hickman.
Yes, Sherry Hickman. All right, so we will count Sherry.
Greg Hickman here.
Okay, perfect. All right, so Mike Lee, you have 15 minutes.
He's on Zoom.
Is Mike on Zoom as well?
Yes, he is.
Mike, go ahead and unmute yourself. Mike, if you would, unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hello, can you hear?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you.
Go ahead, Mike Lee.
There, that's not him. It's getting close. Yeah, it's common.
Madam Chair, looks like there's some sort of audio problem. Mike Lee's speaking on Zoom and he's unmuted, but we're not hearing him.
Okay.
How about Sherry? Sherry Puckett? Cheryl, she's with him, so maybe she could be, she's the one that just spoke.
He's unmuted and he's speaking on Zoom, but is that coming through?
Sometimes their microphones have
Yeah, that would be.
issues. So, Mike, if you can check if you're using your computer audio or something to that effect. Mike, if you do get your audio working, please just chime in at any time. But what I'll do is go to Suzette McGoldrick,
Yes.
and we'll go ahead and find out if all these folks are in the audience.
Can you hear me?
Yes?
Hello? Mike is gonna come and use Nomad's computer now. He'll just talk from Nomad.
Okay, how long will that take?
I'm here.
He's ready to go.
Okay.
Sorry
Go
about
ahead.
this.
That's okay, go right ahead.
And you have my presentation slides up there by any chance?
Yes, they will be up here in just a second.
Okay, great. Well, let me know when that shows up. My point is that Bayview deserves a full traffic impact study on the Lakeview subdivision. Dear Kootenai County, my name is Mike Lee, Post Office Box 711, Bayview, Idaho, and I'm here to testify about the Lakestone Estate subdivision. Dear Kootenai County Commissioners, thank you for entertaining our appeal of the hearing examiner's findings. I'm here representing 12 other members of my community and backed by over 400 local residents who have signed a petition against linking Highway 54 to Perimeter Road through Lakestone subdivision, inadvertently turning the narrow Fuller Avenue side street into a crosstown bypass. We beg you to use your authority to stop the creation of this unnecessary and hugely unpopular bypass traffic route through our quaint and quiet neighborhoods. Requiring this route as part of the Lakestone Estates subdivision will cause our neighborhoods irreparable harm by threatening our safety, degrading our quality of life, and reducing our property values. This issue has brought into focus the developer's trip distribution and generation letter that was used to decide no traffic impact study was required for this highly sensitive, world-class recreation area. We believe the trip letter itself is flawed. Plus, at least two other equally important conditions should have triggered a traffic impact study, but were not addressed at all. To paraphrase them, they are: the development is near areas with high levels of pedestrian and neighborhood activity. The routes have or will create traffic safety issues. Bayview has a tiny footprint, jam-packed with residential, commercial, and recreational properties and services. If any location deserves a full traffic impact study, it's Bayview. This is a unique opportunity to have one completed. We hope you agree and support our plea to amend the decision made by the hearing examiner and require the developer to complete a traffic impact study. Okay, if we could go to slide 2A, faulty trip route estimates and traffic safety discussion. It won't take long for motorists to realize the advantage of Fur Avenue over Perimeter Road. And it was said, yes, Fur Avenue is a horrible route and nobody will want to take it, but that's just not true. We drive all the time there, and yeah, so it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure driving through Farragut Park on a luxurious and safe roadway versus what always feels like the long way around on Perimeter Road. This will completely upend the trip letter estimates and create the threat to our safety, the degradation of our quality of life, and the reduction of our property values as a continuous flow of traffic persists day and night through our neighborhoods. Our concerns are valid. Opening Fur Avenue is a bad idea. We can go to slide 2B, please. Comparing Perimeter Road to Fur. Comparing the two routes is a study in misinformed engineering. The Perimeter Road route is littered with a multitude of intersections and private driveways. You can see by the little red dots. It's lined with steep gravel shoulders and a roller coaster grade that makes the narrow two-lane highway a hazard, with cars passing blindly while speeding along this deceptively low visibility route. The engineer says 85% of traffic from Lakestone will take Perimeter Road. But in comparison, the Fur Avenue Farragut Park route is literally a cruise through a park on a granite boulevard built during World War II. This scenic, wide, divided highway with broad, flat shoulders, ample paved surfaces, and turnouts is also 4 lanes for half its distance. It's always well maintained and always a pleasure to cruise through Farragut State Park. And even at 45 miles per hour, it only takes 1 more minute to get to Apple. Now that we've seen how in all likelihood, a majority of the Lakestone traffic will use Fur Avenue as a shortcut to Highway 54, we have to ask, what route would you take? Next, what effect on our neighborhood? Okay, slide number 3, please. Streets through Bayview neighborhoods are by any measure substandard. Without sidewalks, shoulders, traffic lights, signs, or parking. But they serve our needs with dead ends discouraging everything but local traffic. A single main street through town preserves our priceless neighborhoods. Being a resort hub, our 10 by 12 block tiny town is jam-packed with businesses and services surrounded by some of the finest scenic recreational opportunities in Idaho. Hundreds of thousands of people pass through Farragut State Park that surrounds us. A steady stream of RVs, cyclists, equestrians, recreational boaters, fishermen, and outdoor people of all types
flow through our town. Booming vacation rentals, RV parks and resorts, motels, restaurants, and bars add to the mix, multiplying normal small town traffic during the spring, summer, and fall. Clearly, this alone should require a traffic impact study before plopping down a major subdivision in the middle of this high level of pedestrian and neighborhood traffic area. And sure enough, the traffic impact study guidelines of the Associated Highway Districts of Kootenai County clearly state if the development is near areas with high levels of pedestrian and neighborhood activity, it qualifies for a traffic impact study. Now, they don't have to do it, but it surely only makes sense. Okay, slide 4, please. Going to the post office, the community center, the National Forest, Farragut State Park, or friends across town, you don't have, I can see now that you're not showing my slides, you're showing the thing. There should have been only like 5 pictures on the thing, so you need to get to the pictures. They won't make sense they're doing this, but oh well. Now imagine you open up a thoroughfare through using Fur Avenue that bypasses Main Street. Obviously, the traffic flow will change dramatically. Not only will traffic flow directly from the development, but anyone else in the north side of town heading to Farragut Park now has a route. Next, add the over 100 homes on the southwest side that will have a shortcut for their daily trip to the post office or the community center with its morning through evening activities. And you have pretty much traffic going through First Street all the time. Pedestrians and parked cars often leave only one lane opening for Avenue, as well as other streets throughout town, none of which have sidewalks, often no shoulders. We love our sleepy, slow neighborhoods. Dogs and children are mostly safe. Golf carts are a fixture, along with equestrians and bicycles. During the summer, whole families walk down the middle of the streets in Bayview and feel fine and safe doing that because we're all used to it. But you open this up, and you're going to have people who are not used to driving on these streets of Bayview, and they're going to risk our lives. They're going to impact our neighborhoods. They're going to devalue our property. You know, it all sounds fantastic. Bayview just sounds the greatest, and it is. It's small town Americana. But all of these great things represent existing or projected traffic safety issues. Obviously, there are things that should trigger a traffic impact study under the condition that states that when a development impacts routes that experience or are projected to experience traffic safety issues, a traffic impact study is warranted. Fur Avenue is a traffic safety issue by its very nature, as are all of our streets in Bayview, and they should not in any way be added any more traffic to them, which will happen when this happens. Fur Avenue will congregate traffic that is now dispersed through 5 other routes to Main Street. This is a real issue because pedestrians, golf carts, ATVs, and delivery traffic will increase as well, exacerbating the hazardous situation. So good, you got it up there. Now I have a bird's eye view of Fur Avenue, our pathetically lovely side street, soon to become a connector bypass through Fair Route from hell for our neighborhoods. Hazardously inadequate Fur Avenue bypass discussion. Fur Avenue can become an important emergency exit point, but we ask that it be gated as part of a required requiring the developer to complete a full traffic impact study. As you can see, Fur Avenue is so narrow 2 cars can barely pass one another in many sections. This is a real issue because pedestrian traffic will also increase with this route to the post office and community center, and this represents a hazardous situation. I'd like to end with the Institute of Transportation Engineers guidelines for subdivision streets. Streets should minimize traffic through neighborhoods. This is the engineers' guidelines for subdivision streets. Safety for vehicles and pedestrian traffic is the priority. The local street should be designed for a low volume of traffic. Pedestrian vehicular conflict points should be minimized. There should be a minimum number of intersections. This is the Institute of Transportation Engineers guidelines for subdivision streets. Thank you for your consideration. Please, please, I beg you, gate Fur Avenue at very least. We were told by the Planning and Zoning Department that it wasn't a code requirement. And if you will please then require a traffic impact study for Lakestone subdivision, and then you won't have 400 hostile residents in Bayview who really will not really be happy. Okay, thank you very much, and I appreciate this meeting and everybody that showed up.
Thank you. All right, Suzette. All right, oh gosh, sorry, people. It's gonna be hard. Judith Robinson, okay, and Michael Robinson, okay. Christine Brochier, okay. And, nope, somebody 16177 East 4th. Oh, there's a name all right, it's just not legible. Vicki Richardson.
I'm not speaking, I'm just present.
Correct, yes. So these are people who've given up their time, and they have to be present. Okay, but I still have 2 people who are not legible here. So Bonnie Pratt, all right, Dwayne Pratt, Harvey. Okay, and yes, Kathy Armstrong. Okay, and I just got those 2 other people. Oh, okay.
And I might be too, because I've signed up.
Second her unlegibleness.
All right. All right, and then you guys have not signed up to speak apart from this, correct? Okay. All right, Suzette, please come on up.
Hi, thank you for having me and for having us, hosting us. I'm Suzette McGoldrick. I'm at 16131 East 5th, and I'm on the corner of Fur and 5th. So this has a really huge impact on our place. I just bought a year ago, and but this is just shocking for me. I have a petition here that has been signed by 412 people from Bayview, and they are all wanting this to go away. They don't want it to happen. They realize the same things that I'll be talking about and what you just heard from a gentleman from Bayview. So at 5th Street, my street is about 14 foot 6 inches wide. And that's at Fur. That's on Fur. That is, my car is like 5'5". I mean, that's, okay, and I'm going to just get into this. So according to Google, the typical residential street may be 24 to 28 feet. Well, it's 18 foot 6 inches in front of my house. And I'm talking about both sides of my house. One's on Fur, one's on 5th. And traffic will be heading on both directions. With all the vacation rental housing, extra cars with boats in tow, and a lot of campers, shortages of beachfront parking for our popular float house rentals, and owners with additional guests. The floating restaurant shares Fifth Avenue with all of the street parking, which is very popular. We have a lot of trucks and trailers after they launch their boats. We host fishing derbies all season, spring, summer, and fall. Lots of participants, and they leave their trailers and trucks parked up and down Fifth and all around, wherever they can put them. So we've got all these participants. We have about 40 official parking spots by the Navy base, which is also really close to Fifth. And that's it. The rest is street parking. We have 2 more commercial businesses that are for rent on Fifth Street as well, across the street from one another. We have 1 door from the boat launch, of course, is that Navy base. At the stop sign on 5th and Highway 54, this is where all the activity happens, which wraps around and becomes Perimeter Road. Well, these businesses draw more customers, and they'll park on Highway 54 and 5th Street, up and down 5th. At 5th Street, the stop sign on Highway 54 is about 150 feet to the boat launch. We've got people bringing boats in, leaving. It's now a one-way street. There's just so much traffic, which is terrific. It's a recreation area. So we've got all these cars and trucks lining up both sides of the street, 18 foot, and you're talking a car or a truck, usually, hauling a boat. And you've got, in addition to these activities, you've got Bayview Days, you've got festivals, 4th of July, enormous crowds, parades, Christmas tree lighting ceremonies. We have a stream that runs down the north side of 5th Street, running above ground for many blocks, and then underground to our beautiful Lake Pend Oreille. With these trucks, boats, kayaks, floating toys, golf carts, ATVs. We also have at least 2 adults per vehicle, groups of children, pedestrians, dogs, deer, turkeys, people visiting, vacationing, pumping up their flotation devices, running around with picnic baskets, coolers. A lot of activity on our waterfront, which is 5th Street and Highway 54. That's our waterfront. So, and also we have, besides that, we have, of course, the picnic baskets, coolers, and I already said that. So they run right there towards the lake on 5th. We have a lot of foot traffic, golf carts loaded down with supplies and vacationers. And to make things busier, we have boats exiting the lake at that launch and boats backing in on 5th all day long. Entering, exiting. We have public swimming right there as well on 5th, right there, 150 feet from that. There's 2 stop signs. One goes to the boat launch, and the other one comes down 5th from Fur. And that's the big, huge problem here tonight. So with my little car, 5 foot 5 inches wide, it's a Ford SUV, I'm in my lane, that leaves about 9 feet if I'm on the side of the road. I mean, and they've got a car parked there or a boat with a trailer, which is really very common. In fact, people get kind of mad about it when they try to get into their properties and there's people parked all around, but we're used to it. So the road, if it's devoid of trucks, that is, you know. So this leaves no room whatsoever, particularly if there's cars on each side in our summer months. In summary, I'm a real estate agent, by the way, in Spokane, and I have a vacation home and a home. I live in Bayview. We're remodeling, so I'm a resident. And the property value will be greatly diminished. On a Friday night, right now I have cameras all over my house, and I can see it. My phone makes a little noise whenever there's a car that goes by. On a Friday night, it'll jingle maybe twice. 2 cars will go by from 4 o'clock until midnight. 2. I mean, that's what kind of town we have right now. So we're talking about neighborhood disruptions. It'll disrupt our sense of community. A lot of noise and pollution. And where has our voice been in this process? We shouldn't even be here tonight. Our streets are extremely narrow, no sidewalks. The Bayview Creek is on one side of that road. Our arterials should serve, keeping traffic out of our neighborhoods. That's what they're for. That's what Perimeter's for, and that's what 54th is for, or Highway 54. Safety, it's our top priority. It always has been. Nobody wants this stuff to happen in their neighborhood. Local streets are designed for low traffic volume. They're low traffic. 2 cars can barely pass one another in the summer months. There's just too many parked trailers and trucks around. We don't need upgrading. We need this stopped. Are we loud enough? I mean, we are. There's over 400 people that have signed our petition, and those are just the ones that happen to be online and paying attention. There's a lot of people out of town. A lot of people go somewhere warm for the winter. Well, anyway, so our neighborhood streets, we want to discourage excessive speed, and this would just really decrease our enjoyment. Here's my thought on this. I would love this stopped at this level. How about a narrow entrance exit into our neighborhood from Lakestone Development? No cars allowed. We want to welcome these people, but not their cars and their trucks. We don't want them. How about a restrictive people path, like a multi-model path, M-O-D-A-L, model path. A multi-model or shared use paths or paved travelways are designed to serve non-motorized travelers. Golf carts, bicycles typically are the most common users of this shared use path. However, shared use paths are frequently used by pedestrians, roller skates, skateboards, wheelchairs, golf carts, everything except automobiles. Diamonds painted on the road there indicate a restricted lane. You could have some of those poles. There's the poles there that they're about 5 feet tall and they're round, and traffic can't go through them. It's just an exit for people. We want these people. We like these people. Bayview's so friendly, but we don't want their cars. We don't want their trucks. We want to be able to do what we usually do, and that is, visit. When people are walking along, they visit. Someone has a campfire, and gosh, it's just such a friendly place. I just couldn't resist it. And being an agent, I could live anywhere I wanted in the whole world, really. And I picked Bayview because, gosh, these people are just something. Look at them all. These are just a small group here wearing red. They wanted to have an impact. We really want you to hear us, and I'm going to give you this petition that's been signed. And I really hope that you take to heart what we're saying here. We are really loud. We want you to hear us. We need that traffic study. We need this stopped. It shouldn't have gotten this far.
It's read into the record as B1003.
B1003. Okay. Anyway, I have 5 minutes left, and I just I want to say something for people that can't talk or sign petitions. And that's all of our wildlife. We got a lot of deer in our neighborhood. We've got wild turkeys. Sometimes they're up in trees, if you can believe it. I mean, it's just a tremendous area to live in. These cars and trucks are just not welcome. The people, all day long, bring them in. But let's leave their cars and trucks. Let's have them go out on perimeter. Have them enter and exit on perimeter. That makes the most sense. And they can still come through with their baby strollers and their dogs and their families and visit with us, and we can visit with them. We want them, but we really don't want their cars and trucks. So you can see where our streets are just so narrow, and it would disrupt our whole town. 25 or 24 homes. I mean, we've only got 100 homes out there. To put something like that through our town is like, it just doesn't make any sense. We already have a highway and then perimeter. Why would we do something to disrupt a small group of people, 100 of us or more? And then, of course, a lot more people in the summertime. I've been told there's as many as 25,000 people that come to Bayview because it's so wonderful. We got sailboat races that go on twice a week and all those cars. And you just can't imagine the amount of traffic we get. And we're not complaining, but we really don't want them coming through our town. They can stay on the busier areas, and that's what they generally do. So I hope that's enough that I've said. Anyway, thank you very much. Please take to heart our
Questions?
Yes.
Do you have any questions?
How many cars and trucks do you have in Bayview?
I have 2 cars, and there's just one of me. I have 2 cars, and I have 2 scooters, and I have 2 boards that I float on, and a jet ski. And I'm collecting more if anyone has any boats for sale. But it's a recreation place. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bruce?
No questions.
I have one question. What is the wintertime population in Bayview?
Not many. I don't know. I've never counted them all.
Okay.
Two what?
Okay, you need to come back to the microphone.
Can I have someone shout out a number? Less than 200?
Less than 200.
But in the summer, it's 25,000. This is the wrong time of year.
Okay, folks, just stop, please.
This is the wrong time of year to examine Bayview. You have to come to Bayview in June or July or August.
I've been there many times in those months.
Where do you park, may I ask?
I ride a motorcycle.
Oh, see, we've got you guys too. So please don't let them mix up our town, right?
Thank
Agree?
you.
Raise your hands.
Thank you.
That's what we're supposed to do. Raise them up.
All right. Are you good? You want to take a break yet?
Pardon?
You want to take a break, or are you good? Okay, all right, folks, I think we're going to go ahead and take a 10-minute break, and then we'll be back to hear the other people who would like to speak. And what I would tell people who have signed up to speak, if somebody has already said what you are going to say, then when I call your name, you can just say already said, okay? So 10 minutes, and we'll be right back. Okay, Jonathan? All right, great, thank you. All right, I'm going to start with the folks who say that they are opposed to the project and wish to speak, but if you have changed your mind because somebody has already covered your topic, then just let me know and we can go on to the next person. All right, David Anderson.
Good evening, council. Thank you, staff and constituents, neighbors. My name's David Anderson. I own the home at 16172 East 4th Street, Bayview. It's on the corner of Spruce and 4th, which is one block west of me is Fir Street. I'm really here on community more aspect. I've heard a lot of statistics and policies and practices, and I basically just want to talk about what's right for our communities in Idaho. I currently live in Post Falls. I drive from Post Falls to Bayview probably every Friday, and I'm watching the prairie disappear. It's sad. I think as Idahoans, we need to take a look at what we're doing to our communities and make sure that we're doing the right thing. I don't begrudge anybody the right to the free market society and develop that property and put homes in there for families. Living in Bayview is a privilege to me. Excuse me, I get a little bit emotional. My grandfather went to boot camp there in 1942. They owned the cabin on 2nd and Red Spire from 1960 until 1995. I grew up in and around Bayview, and my wife also from the valley. Apologize for my emotionalness, but just who I am. I watch my neighbors, Bruce and Judy, walk up and down the street every weekend on a sunny day. And I wonder what the impact of opening up First Street will do. They live between First Street and me. So they walk through there. I watch kids, families, my own grandchildren play on 4th Street. I watch people go up Spruce and 4th, travel at crazy speeds, don't look. The more traffic we introduce to our little village is going to create tragedy, I fear. That could be, that could not be. But I think we have to look at that. The streets are narrow. It's slippery in the winter. It's not, if you've ever been down First Street, First to Fir it's a roller coaster street, right? It's not going to be safe. Let's be real about what happens in our communities when we open things up, right? Look at the prairie, look at Coeur d'Alene, look at the things that have changed over the last 20 to 30 years. I think that progress is good in the right direction. I don't think this is the right direction. I think we need to be serious about what happens to our communities and our families. I thank you for your time. Serious consideration should be given to this about what the impact is for Bayview.
Thank you. All right, Norma Jean Knowles.
Hello, thank you. My name is Norma Jean Knowles. I live at 34417 North Robin Lane. I live right across from the community center. I also have the privilege, I think, of seeing all the traffic coming in and out on perimeter, because that's what the road that I live on. I am concerned, as many are, as the impact of opening up First Street. Listening to everybody and the testimonies that have been given, I'm not sure that you all are the ones that we should be addressing. I'm beginning to think that we need to be addressing Lakes Highway about our concerns, because they are the ones that said they wanted to do that. You do need to know that we are concerned. I watch people go through Corbin to get to perimeter. I watch them go through all the side streets to get to another part of town. So the concerns are legitimate. My other concern, which has not really been addressed, sort of in a way it was, is the 75-foot buffer for Bayview Creek. That is my biggest concern. I want that preserved. And you can put that in the CCRs and you can put it in the HOAs, but that doesn't mean that anybody's going to be there to make it happen. There's not going to be anybody there watching to see who is going to take advantage of the situation. And I love Bayview Creek, even though I'm not right by it. Jim McDonald said in 2006, and he was the president of Bayview Chamber of Commerce, you can put those in writing, but people are not going to listen to it because they're going to want to change the landscape. They're going to want to take out bushes. They're going to want to put in other things that don't belong there. So those things are my concern, and I want to thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you. All right, Ally Spawn. Okay.
Good evening, thanks. My name is Ally Spawn, and I live on Fir Avenue, so I have a big stake in this. With all due respect to Gordon and the Lakes Highway District, this is our town, and opening Fir Avenue would not benefit the Bayview residents. When my husband and I bought our home 8 years ago, we chose Bayview because we found we were buying a refuge, a place where you could relax, recharge, and live our best life. We became part of a close-knit retirement community of 763 residents with a median age of 60, and 400 of those residents signed the petition. And I'm sure that the 763 would have signed if we were able to get a hold of them. The narrow roads through our residents, actually our bone of contention is really the opening of Fir Avenue, not the development. The narrow roads through our resident streets have been one of the primary reasons the neighborhood environment is so enjoyable to walk and play. If the substandard neighborhood side street Fir Avenue becomes a bypass arterial connector, as Mike has stated, Fir Avenue will become a shortcut to Highway 54, increasing the traffic flow. With the increase of vacation rentals, and the addition of 25 new homes in our neighborhood, traffic through our neighborhoods will not only be hazardous, but dangerous for our families, wildlife that meanders through our town, and the elderly that utilize the Bayview streets for daily walks, which we do. We have already seen an increase of vacationers speeding through our neighborhood streets with quads, motorcycles, and side-by-sides. During the winter, the snow also creates the roads to be even more narrow. Residents also expressed their concern regarding crime. We fear that increased connectivity provides potential criminals with easy access to neighborhood where they are unlikely to be noticed. Additional points of access also mean multiple escape routes for criminals. Just last December, a truck slid into one of the homes off of 5th Street and took off, just a hit and run. So may I remind you that we do have over 400 people who signed the petition. We ask, please keep our neighborhood streets safe and our community, the quaint town we know and love. Keep Fir Avenue closed. Please vote no on the opening of Fir Avenue without a traffic study or without a gate. I thank you.
Thank you. All right, Larry Dubé, or Dubé.
Hello. My name's Larry Dubé. I live on 3936 North Fir Avenue, the notorious road that they're talking about breaking it through. My parents owned the place at first for a long time. I have many, many memories and years of going there and spending time there and enjoying the peace and quiet and watching the animals frolic through there, and my children and now my grandchildren enjoying the same respect to that area. I again say that if you've ever been on Fir Avenue and traveled on it, it's like a roller coaster, and it's even worse in the wintertime. I mean, really worse in the wintertime. When the plow goes through there in town, they leave berms in everybody's driveway. That's another issue as well. The impact that would have on Bayview in this area would be non-productive for the people that live there. this new, excuse me, this new housing development that they want to build there. I think they could use another alternative to get to it there and from, instead of punching through the middle of our little town. One of the streets that I live right on, and our neighbors do as well. And so I think they really need to seriously reevaluate the situation and come up with some other alternative. Otherwise, there's going to be some issues going on there. We do have accidents, and as I said, and crime and that goes on as well. You open that street up, you get more traffic coming down there in the wintertime on that hill. It gets, even when you're coasting, you go fast. So if you're going to have a speed limit, you're going to be going double on that. I got my grandchildren on those streets playing, riding their bikes, and I fear for them. And I fear for everybody else's kids and their grandkids in that town as well. And I really think they need to rethink the whole situation and find an alternative for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
All right, Teresa Dubé, opposed, does not say if she wishes to speak. No? Okay. Mary Lou Brannigan may wish to speak.
Yes.
Okay.
So my name is Mary Lou Brannigan, and my husband and I, Harvey, have lived in Bayview for 17 years. We live at 34124 North Spruce Avenue. And my concern is about the Bayview water system. So far, I'm just really surprised that this development has come to this place because, and this is from Bayview Water's, from their website, they themselves say that the water system is vintage and is in dire need of replacement and repair. And so this is on page 34 of their source water protection plan. And it says here, late May of 2020, the community passed a bond issue of $3.4 million with 1.75% interest on a 30-year loan to refurbish the 1942 vintage system. Projects include refurbishing the 225,000-gallon Farragut storage tank, presently leased from the U.S. Navy, along with installation of a 12-inch water main through the town, and will increase the pressure significantly in the distribution lines. The final phase will concentrate on the much-needed repair of many distribution system leaks that amount to about 118,000 gallons of drinking water consistently lost every day. So I'm questioning, and so I know that there is money that is, that there are some improvements that are happening. But, you know, just last year we had a water main break on 5th, and I cannot imagine putting 24 more units on an already antiquated 78-year-old water system. I mean, I'm concerned about doing this before it's renovated. So I know the plan is to renovate it, but we live right on, you know, on Spruce, and I haven't seen any new water mains come in. So again, my questioning is how this has gone so far, and we're really looking at putting this 24-unit subdivision on a very broken water system, and I can't imagine it holding, you know, without the renovations. So, yeah, this is my main concern, is our water system.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Sure. All right, Frank Abbott, opposed, may wish to speak.
Thank you, Council. I appreciate this opportunity, and I appreciate your time and efforts being here. A couple things that I've noticed in these presentations was, for one, the lack of mentioning of traffic coming down Bayview Cutoff Road, everybody talked about traffic trying to get to Highway 54 via Perimeter Road. It's not including the traffic that is trying to come down Bayview Cutoff Road, which is undeniable in light of the construction that started in between Perimeter Roads and Highway 95. I live, for all intents and purposes, at the intersection of 5th and Spruce. In the last couple years, due to recent events, traffic has increased dramatically through there because of non-residents bringing boats in, non-residents just passing through. A thoroughfare from Perimeter Road would allow that traffic to pass through with even more ease. This is an example. Traffic through Coeur Lane, Rathdrum, Post Falls, and Hayden is atrocious, despite the fact that there is an interstate and a highway to the north and south. Traffic along Hayden and Prairie is dangerous. Almost daily collisions along the intersections of Hayden, Huter, Meyer, and Greens Ferry Road. This is what's going to happen to Bayview if that Fir Avenue bypass is open. It's going to allow, that Fir bypass is our last buffer from traffic coming from Perimeter Road, trying to get through to Highway 54. Another thing that was lightly touched on was the passing of wildlife through the area. This wildlife is ever present. They're there day and night, often in the worst lighting conditions. You can see multiple collisions driving up Highway 54 and Perimeter Road. They pass through the yards. They, at will, cross the streets that this traffic will be passing through. Again, this traffic just passes through. Sometimes they don't stop for the intersections with the residents passing through. That would be another indication, but that was mentioned before. In another testimony to the water pressure, there is a great lack of water pressure during the recent bonfire that passed through Bayview a few years ago. That needs to be addressed if there's going to be more residents coming in and using the system. So, thank you. I appreciate your time.
All right, Harvey Brannigan.
124 North Spruce. I just need a second because I would like to add on to what my wife was speaking about, and that's the water system. I mean, our water system is just, it's horrible. I mean, our pressure you never know what's going to happen when you go to take a shower. I mean, you really don't. So I hear that there's going to be an improvement to the water system. I hope so. But why don't we postpone the construction of this subdivision until there's an adequate amount of water for the homes that are already there? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, these folks say that they are opposed and do not wish to speak. However, if you have changed your mind because somebody has not spoken to your particular issue, then please let me know. Robin Vieira. Okay. Crystal Irvine. Okay. Jacqueline Bowdry. Okay. Judy Bushak. Okay. Oh, I'll put my glasses on for this. Very tiny writing. Christine Wilkins. Okay. Mike Bowdry. Ken Fry. Okay. And Chris Boleno. Okay. Anybody else who did not sign a white piece of paper who wishes to speak? All right, let's head on to Zoom. How many people do we have on Zoom?
Like about 15.
Okay.
I'll start at the top of the page and just work the way down. All right. Sherry.
Okay, hang on.
Excuse me, Carl Blanchetta, but, okay.
Hang on. Let David Callahan, go ahead and call each name, and when he calls your name, if you wish to speak, then go ahead and chime in. If you do not wish to speak, you can remain silent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First on the list is Cecilia Fry.
Can we lighten that up a little bit, Jonathan? Okay, he's working on that. All right.
Cecilia, did you wish to speak?
Okay.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Sherry Hickman.
Yeah, my name is Carl Blanchett. I'm at the Hickman residence. I just got back into town. I'm a resident at 16260 East 5th, the corner of 5th and Spruce. I've been listening to the conversations, and couple of my concerns are overall the culture of Bayview. Bayview, Idaho is 60% or 62 years old is the average age of the residents in Bayview, Idaho. And the property values with these new homes will obviously sell for a lot more than some of us that are on fixed incomes have purchased our homes for, meaning our taxes will go up. In the last 6 years, my taxes have doubled due to the increase of sales in Bayview of existing homes and what people from down south are willing to pay for them up here. So I anticipate that these new homes will also sell for a lot of money, increasing the taxes on the retired and fixed income people of Bayview, which I think has a negative impact. Not the subdivision itself, but the values that it presents and increased tax dollars for those that are in the existing homes of Bayview. Another concern I have is further down the road is the use of needing fire service, ambulance service, the law enforcement services, snowplow services, garbage services. All those require additional time and effort and cost back to the county taxpayers. So I am concerned that, again, my taxes will increase to cover those for those 24 homes and residents of the new subdivision. Also, we have spoken about traffic. My concern is not only the 2 cars per household that the estimate seems to be, but those new homes will be younger, and they'll have children, and they'll have drivers, and then their friends will come and visit them with drivers. So it's not just 2 cars per household over time. It's the future says it's going to be a lot more based on 24 new homes and probably younger families in Bayview. So I ask that you consider the long-term impact and consider these taxes based on fixed income retired people that currently make up the culture of Bayview. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Next is Francie Miller.
Yes, I live on Pine Avenue in Bayview, and I've lived here for 11 years. I'm an Idaho native, and I just want to point out that Fur Street is not straight. That's all.
Thank you. All right, next.
John. The next up is John, and the last name is Charyk.
I'm John Charyk. I share the concerns already raised regarding how this project would adversely affect the town of Bayview, but I'm just going to use my time for a moment to speak specifically about pedestrians and cyclists, and thereby request that a TIS be required before this project goes through. As a resident of Bayview, I use my bike to run errands. I use it for recreation. I use it for fitness. And so that includes trips to the post office, visiting friends, the market, and accessing Farragut Park. And I'm not alone. I see lots of cyclists on the roads and school-age kids riding their bikes around town. So my plea is that the highway district be requested to perform a TIS and specifically include evaluation of the potential effect of this on cyclists and pedestrians, not only in town, but safe access in and out of town and to and from Farragut Park. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next.
Next is Carrie Kelly / Moffett.
Yeah, thank you. So I've been a resident of Bayview for 2 years. I came from Sands Point, Idaho. One of my main concerns would be opening them up First Street. Right now, there's a lot of dead-end streets in there, and like someone stated earlier, there's not really a reason to go down there if you don't have a purpose for being there. You don't live there, you know, you're visiting somebody there. If you make that a thoroughfare, you're opening up to crime, potential crime. You're going to have people from outside of the area finding an easy way into neighborhoods that they currently just didn't have that easy access to. So that's just something I don't think anybody's really pointed out. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Kai Chappell, Chapple.
Yeah, good evening. Sorry, thank you. Great session. Appreciate all the input. I guess my one thought is from the perspective of the developer, it sounds like they have tried to do their due diligence. They've adjusted things, etc. My main question is if there is additional study that's considered or any other hoops, not to be anti-development or put more burden on this particular developer that sounds like they've tried their best to meet all the requirements. Are we reaching a level where maybe the highway department needs to get involved and they're covering the costs? In other words, they've already reduced their development from 29 to 24. That means the prices of their homes are probably going to be more. They're making less. We don't want to discourage development, basically. So I'm just wondering, is there a way that if there is consideration for any further studies or whatever, should that cost not be directly a burden of the developer and there's other options so that we don't discourage developers, you know, from doing the due diligence? And it sounds like they're just being as honest as they possibly can to meet the requirements. But that I did sign the petition about the First Street. It does sound concerning, and the testimonies have been very compelling. But appreciate the time and the consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Liz, and there's no last name.
Yeah, Ms. Baker, you're getting feedback here, so,
I think it's because she's logged in twice.
okay. Is that something that you can fix on your end, Ms. Baker?
I've got her muted on one side.
Okay.
She's muted herself on the other.
All right, so try just to open up one.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
No, it's still having feedback. How about if you can work that out and we'll go on to the next person and come back to you. Yeah.
Ms. Gina.
Hi, my name's Gianna Hoffmeister, and I live at 16088 East First Street. So basically the southwest corner of First and Fir. Over the last 20 years, I've watched an amazing increase in traffic and have had a number of close calls where I was nearly broadsided by people who don't stop at the corner of Fir and First. They're locals, except in the summer when they're visitors. And the reality is, none of the streets in our little community have any sort of traffic control. There are no stop signs, there are no yield signs, and you have to operate on trust that people will actually look to see if someone's coming the other way. I looked at the plans for this project, and they say they want to divert, create a bypass from 3rd over to the highway, putting through Fur to 3rd and then over to the highway. Well, if any traffic engineer drove that route, they would see that visibility and line of sight are extremely compromised because you're coming up a sharp, round curve, which means most people would just prefer to come up to this nice, easy first street that has a pretty good broad view. So I feel like in the summertime, when everyone wants to avoid the boat and pedestrian traffic downtown, they'll find Fur all too convenient a route to take, bypassing that mess downtown. I really do think we need a serious traffic impact study. I don't think any of us want to live in a bubble. We don't object to having new people join our community. All of us have joined in recent years or longer years, or like me, followed in the footsteps of my great-grandparents who were here in the 30s. But we want to be thoughtful about this, and we want our community to be safe. And putting through Fur is not a safe decision. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay.
Next is Paul Stewart.
Hi, my wife and Terry and I, we're more newcomers here to Bayview. We've been here a little less than 2 years. We live on 4th Street. And our main concern is the traffic connecting 1st Street through this little town, which we are older, like the previous callers, previous people have said, we're in that same demographic. And I think almost everybody that's spoken has made really excellent points. And the traffic going through 1st Street does not make any sense to me at all. I was in a similar situation in another previous residence, and what they did, they put fire gates up. If the main concern is for emergency personnel can then use that gate. But you can't use it. You could use, pedestrians could use it, and you could even make, as Suzette said, where a golf cart could go through, but not cars. Because the thing we love about this town, and one of the things that attracted us to this town, was the fact that it's a walking town. You can walk everywhere. And as the previous person said, there's no yield signs and stop signs. The streets just intersect. And so you get some knucklehead who is not paying attention. They can just drive right through, and you're going to have problems, especially when you increase the traffic. Did you want to say something too? Okay. And that's basically what I wanted to say.
Thank you.
I hope that you're taking it seriously and not just, I don't see anybody taking notes, and I hope that, we really do get a TIS, because I think we deserve it.
Well, and I think just to chime in, this is Terry Stewart. This really is a walking town, and it's not just people walking. It's golf carts. It's horseback riders. It's kids on skateboards. It's snowmobiles. And I know Fur is really a slippery slope in the wintertime. It's almost like a luge. It's very icy, very steep, and I just foresee some tragedies.
I think it's one of the narrower streets in town.
Yeah.
We walk it all the time. But anyway, that's all we wanted to say. I want to take up any
Thank you. And just for your benefit, I'm on my 7th page of notes.
Okay, good. I apologize.
Yeah.
Every time we looked up, I didn't see anybody writing anything down, so I was like,
yeah, we were a little concerned because we saw people on their laptop screens and not looking at people who were speaking.
Right. Thank you, folks. We're going to get on and let some more people have time. So thank you so much. Next.
Thank you.
Next is Sue Taylor. I'll move on and go to the last person on the list, and if Sue unmutes herself, we can go back. The last person we have is Wendy on her iPad.
Okay.
Wendy, if you want to speak, now would be the time. Apparently not.
And then still Liz Baker.
We'll go back to,
Hi. Don't forget Nomad.
well, I'm sorry, I thought you had already spoken. But go right ahead.
That was Mike.
Okay, go right ahead. Just give us
Hi,
your name and address, please.
My name's Cheryl Puckett, 1603 East Schaefer Street. I'm speaking about Bayview Creek. It was suggested to the hearing examiner that covenants be put in when someone buys the Lakestone subdivision lots. That's a great idea, but that will never protect Bayview Creek, which is a Class 1 stream. As time goes on, after the houses are built along the creek, there will be an owner who wants to extend their yard, putting grass and fertilizer up to the creek. The reality is there will be no enforcement. After one person violates the 75-foot buffer, they'll all follow suit. It's just human nature. Bayview Creek has something unique, which is genetically pure strain West Slope cutthroat trout. What needs to happen is the developer place a fence along the 75-foot buffer. This should only affect 8 homes. That is really the only way to truly protect the creek. Let Bayview Creek flow freely and support a spawning population of cutthroat. It's not asking too much of the developer to place a fence along the 75-foot buffer. Otherwise, there will be abuse to it. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, we'll go back to Liz Baker and see if they're able to join us at this time.
Okay.
Hi, thank you. I think that you can hear me now, right?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry about that. Okay. So I just wanted to say that my family has owned this home on 4th and Ponderay since the 1960s. And there used to be a gravel road in front of my house. And I'm not against development. There's a paved road now, and I'm fine with that. And I like the snowplow and all of that. But I do agree that any time that we are going to change this place that much, we need to be very, very careful about how we decide what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And I agree with every single person that has spoken so far. Thanks for listening to me.
Thank you very much. All right, last call from the audience and from Zoom.
Everyone on Zoom has spoken.
Okay. So what I would ask for then is a motion to end public testimony. Oh, sorry. You're right, thank you. Sorry, I'm getting very tired. Ms. Kruger, are you ready for your rebuttal?
It's actually Mr. Dobler.
Okay, Mr. Dobler, 15 minutes, please. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Let's do the easy one first, the water system. So there is a condition from Bayview Water District that prohibits the subdivision from connecting to the water system until the water improvements have been completed. So that's covered. Traffic, I'll be brief. I find it a little bit ironic that we didn't want the connection in the first place, so I'm not here to defend the connection. What I am here to do is evaluate, did the highway district act appropriately in not requiring a TIS? And the conclusion is yes, they did. I've given you their statements. I'm going to read from the letter they sent the county. Based on the district's analysis of existing transportation network, which includes the streets we've been talking about tonight, and trip destinations in the area, the Fir Avenue extension is expected to change existing traffic patterns for the betterment of the public and emergency services.
Folks, please, I don't want to cut this hearing off, so please.
I'm just quoting from the Highway District to convey what their conclusion is of not requiring the TIS. Secondly, the TIS is not the vehicle to address the connection of Fir or not. The TIS would, if the Highway District had required it, would have addressed the conditions at the surrounding intersections, capacity, traffic safety, those issues, not the connection of First Street. That was per ordinance. They're dead set on that. They evidenced that by the requirement that we connect to Fir. In fact, the connection at Perimeter, as one of the other gentlemen testified, was the discretionary approval. That was what they granted us. So, again, the concern for additional traffic on Fir, and I'm not here to obviate that need or that concern. It's a concern, but I want to say to call it a bypass is unfounded. The traffic on Fir, number one, is not coming from the new project. They're not going south to wind their way through, by other testimony, streets that are, and I quote, "Fir is so narrow, two cars can barely pass one another in many sections. It's littered with bottlenecks, low visibility intersections. There are no sidewalks or even shoulders for pedestrians." Traffic on 54 is not going through this to get to Fir, to get to Perimeter, which is the same road. That's not going to happen. The traffic from the subdivision, they're not going south through this when they're 100 feet or so away from Perimeter/Main.
Okay, folks, again, I'm going to allow Mr. Dobler to have extra time if he's continually interrupted. So I understand the passion, but please let him finish his rebuttal.
Thank you. And I understand the passion too. So it's not coming from the subdivision. It's not coming from through traffic. Where is it going to come from? Any additional traffic on First Street is coming from the subdivisions, existing subdivisions to the south, the very people that are here testifying tonight. I think I covered it.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
that's it for your rebuttal?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Kruger? Okay. All right, then I would entertain a motion to end public testimony and continue deliberations to a time certain, April 13th. Yes, April 13th.
I move that we end public testimony and move deliberations to April 13th.
Would that be the 10 a.m.?
The 10 a.m.?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Commissioner Matari.
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. All right, folks, thank you so much for coming out. I appreciate your comments and everything, and we will be taking this under consideration. Appreciate it. Safe travels home, please.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Hey, you did this.